Welcome to Echo Pod with PFC, a podcast for exploring the intersection of environmental conservation, education, and sustainability. Today is another special episode where we'll be celebrating International Zero Waste Day and focusing on the theme of zero waste in fashion and textiles. Joining us is a special guest from CODAF who will share her experts and insights on this critical topic. Please welcome our guest, Melody Enyinnaya, the Program Manager, Environment Community Development and Advocacy Foundation, CODAF. We are excited to have you on this call, ma'am.
Thank you very much. I'm glad to join you today.
Thank you. So, we are celebrating International Zero Waste Day. Can you take us into the celebration aspect of how the celebration came to be of Zero Waste Day?
Zero Waste Day is actually the day marked out by the United Nations to celebrate the struggle around waste and the advocacy for zero waste adoption all around the world. So basically, it's usually celebrated on the 30th of March of every year. So I think that celebration started a few years ago, where the United Nations thought it wise that is good. A whole lot of work has been put forward into advocacy around zero waste. So they thought it wise that it's good to map out a day to look back on the work that's been done and also look at the future and also areas that needs more work.
Oh, that is great. I think that initiative is a great one by the UN. And let's dive into the activities, or rather the question. Can you share some of CODAF background initiative and projects in terms of environmental sustainability?
Okay, well, as the CODAF, Community Development Advocacy Foundation, we basically work to bridge the gap, the communication gap between policymakers and grassroots, and also to raise awareness of the rural dwellers and empower them to be active and key players in environmental decision making. You know, we came to find out that the local government, local communities are being marginalized. Yeah, because a whole lot of activities happening in their community, they are not being carried along. And then at the national state level, even at the local level, we find out that the place of the local community is missing. So as CODAV, we came on board and decided to bridge this gap. So in the areas of our thematic areas and organization, we have a thematic on environment. We also have a thematic in community action and governance. We also have in agriculture, gender and youth action, and then our Creek Girl project. In the environment, we have undertook or executed projects around waste issues, around climate justice issues, especially with focus in the Niger Delta area of Nigeria, where issues of oil spill and community marginalization is fully seen playing out. Then in the place of agriculture, we have also done a project around Okomu oil palm, where we saw issues of marginalization too, where community are being marginalized via the activities of the oil palm. So we're able to pull up a project there in order to bridge that gap and also get the company to do it right and also the community to do it right. So in Creek Girl project, we We are basically looking at our communities in the creek where they don't have any food, they don't have they don't have any facilities, and their community has been polluted by oil spill and all of that. So these are some of the critical issues that we have looked into as an organization.
That is so remarkable. I must say that CODAF has done a remarkable job over this period of time you've been in existence, and there are track records written everywhere, seen everywhere, of what you have been doing. So in your thematic areas you mentioned agriculture, community outreach, and environment. So specifically, we want you to tell us more about CODAP's specific initiatives and projects that aim at reducing waste in Nigeria.
Okay, first, there is an ongoing project by CODAF in Delta State called Zero Waste Campus Project. That project is targeted at campuses in Delta State, and currently it is running in Federal University of Petroleum Resources, Efun, Delta State. That specific project, we aim to end the use of single-use plastics in universities. Yeah, because we came to understand that the university environment produces a whole lot of waste, and they do not know exactly how to manage the waste, and it's it leaks into the environment. So that was one of the reasons that project came to be. So through that project, we have been able to train the staffs and students of that school on um zero waste, which we trained them under our school of governance, zero waste school of governance. So the training was a 2 day training, but it was highly catchy. And as we speak now, we have implementers and we have actors on zero waste in that campus. Already, we are seeing a whole lot of success stories from that project alone, because one, the project gave birth to plastic free campus ambassadors who are already working in the school, making sure that the school waste is being managed properly through the informations and knowledge that we shared during the school of governance. So we developed a blueprint that other universities can also use, and government institutions and other institutions too can also use to achieve uh zero waste in their environment, in their school, in wherever place they are. So that booklet is highly sought after booklet that most organizations and institutions are looking out for. So that is one. Then the other project that we worked on that is highly beneficial in reducing waste is what we call plastic. We call brand audit in Ugeli. We carried out a brand audit in Ugeli, and Ugeli, what we do in brand audit is to determine the number of plastics in the environment, and also we through that activity you can now determine the highest polluters. That is the brands that are highest polluters. So in the Ugeli axis, we're able to determine that Coca-Cola is the highest producers and polluters in that area. So through it, we're able to come up with a policy brief, and a media brief to address the issues around plastics and how we use it as consumers and also the producers. Then we started pushing for uh the end, that is the end of the product, who should manage the plastic waste, where we now started pushing as an advocacy at the state level that plastics and or all plastic should be managed by the producers. So a producer cannot just produce waste and expect consumers to manage waste for them. So you have to produce your waste and also be responsible for your waste. Then also, zero waste has a whole part of it. So there is a current push by the Lagos State government for a waste to energy plant in Ekpe. We as an organization, in collaboration with our allies called Gaia Nigeria, were able to push insist that the Lagos State government should not undergo on that project. So as a result of that, we are currently running a project in Lagos tagged multi-solving actions, uh, actions against to reduce methane emission in Lagos State. So that project is ongoing now in Ekpe government. So these are just a few of what we are doing, and then we are also in the process of starting a campaign we call My Zero Waste Supermarket. Yes. What we intend doing in that campaign is we visit supermarkets and try to let them know that they must have to reduce their waste. Where we intend to bring in the idea, the concept that you developed last year, and then implement it into the supermarkets and to work.
Okay, you said a lot. You said so many things, and I must say that CODAF is actually doing a great job in the aspect of waste management. And in the cost of executing this project you've mentioned, I want to know if there are major or significant challenges faced in the cost of executing this project.
Well, of course, there will be challenges. In fact, there are challenges, and we are addressing the challenge in the best way we can. One of the challenges that always encounter, in fact, it is similar in all the projects that are currently ongoing, is when it comes to do with the policy angle of it. You know, you cannot talk about waste without having policy to back it up. Yeah, because um policy has a role to play in the aspect of waste management, and we are of the opinion that if we can segregate our waste from source, we have managed 60% of waste. We have done 60% of waste management. So, and that particular thing is a policy thing. It is something that you can achieve via policy and also advocacy and education. But then, if you leave it at education level, you find out that um, people are with the challenge of after segregating their waste at home and all of that. The waste managers comes and then they are they have to jam pack the whole thing. So where policy comes in. So the only challenge that we face most times is after we had engaged with policymakers, we expect them to act immediately, but then we don't get that. So I can term it political will. Yeah, political will. So that is a major challenge in dealing with these issues. Then the other one is would I say let me call it that we still have a whole lot of work to do in advocacy. Yeah. A whole lot of persons we still need to work on it because there are some communities you work in, you find out that they don't even have an idea of what you are talking about. So we have a whole lot of work to do around advocacy. Yeah.
Okay. I must say that advocacy is one of the key areas if everybody is carried along, I think most of these challenges will reduce in a great measure, right? So thank you for throwing more lights on everything you have said and what CODAF has been doing, and also in the areas of the challenges they have been facing in implementing some of these projects and initiatives. Thank you, Melody. And also, going to today's topic, that is zero waste in fashion and textiles. I think is another dimension entirely when it comes to waste management. I know subsequently or before now, we have been talking about waste, electronic waste, other form of waste, and the rest. And this field, that is the fashion and textile field, is also a broad areas where a lot of wastes are generated. And I must applaud the United Nations for bringing this area out for us to discuss and to see the need, these factories and individuals and manufacturers, the role they can play to mitigate some of this issue, some of the waste management approach. So, how do you think manufacturers can adopt zero waste production practices, and what are the benefits of doing it?
In the fashion industry, right?
Yes, yes.
Okay. Well, I think let me answer that by first of all giving an understanding of what zero waste is in the fashion and textile industry. You know, a whole lot of persons will ask you, you have been talking about zero waste, zero waste. Do you mean that waste cannot come out? So these are some of the issues. So when we talk about zero waste in the fashion textile industry, it has to do with while designing, producing, and the use of clothing, that we must have to eliminate waste at every stage of it. So just like zero waste has to do with sustainable production and consumption. So we now brought it down to the fashion and textile industry. So as a manufacturer of fashion or textile, zero waste is trying to say, okay, in all you do, make sure that you minimize waste to the barest minimum. Now let's take a look at that fashion industry. When you look down at it, you find out that the fashion industry is that industry that openly made Africa a dumping ground. Exactly. Yes, because it encourages waste trade. The clothing material that we call second hand is waste in the Western world, but they chose to send it to us in Africa because they have made the global north have made the global south a dumping ground for all manner of waste. So that industry, the fashion industry, is an enabling factor for waste trade. And also, talking about how manufacturers can look into adopting zero waste, we have to start looking at the design. In their design, they have to have it in mind that we must reduce waste in our design. So therefore, the designing materials, the materials they use in, of course we know that most of the materials are plastic. They are byproducts of plastics. So indirectly, when this clothing end up in our dump site or in our landfills, they emit microplastics in the environment and all of that. So you see that we are not safe at all. And I think this is why the spotlight had to come to that industry a whole lot. So we must look at sustainable material choices. This is for the manufacturers. They must start looking at materials that will be sustainable for the environment, and for individuals.
I was asking if there is any room for CODAF to want to engage. You have been engaging some of the community. You made mention Coca-Cola. Hence, they are the producers, and you want to checkmate from both end, the manufacturers and the end users, right? In the aspect of controlling plastic waste. Now, will there be any room for CODA to also have such engagement with the manufacturers, that is the stakeholders, when it comes to the designers, the manufacturers, and the consumers of this fashion we are talking about in regards to this year's celebration?
In regards to fashion, if there will be any room to engage with them, yes, we will definitely do that, because now that this sector or industry has been spotlighted as a major area that generates waste, it will be good to carry out advocacy around the sector, because in as much as the information is everywhere, I know that at community level, that education or information might not be there. So it is very important. It boils down to the talk we were discussing before, that advocacy is the key. So it is very important, and I know that in a while to come, in collaboration with the project we are executing in Lagos, we will definitely engage the people in the fashion industry on how to manage their waste, and then how to reduce it and not bring it back to, or let it end in the dump site and all of that. So we will definitely engage. Yeah.
Okay, thank you so much. And in also, just to add up with what you said, um, waste management is one aspect, while another aspect is using sustainable materials, right?
Exactly.
So,
Exactly.
is there any room we think these manufacturers can adopt, can adopt sustainable materials in their production?
Yes, they can. I'm aware of some biodegradable fibers that can be used to produce clothing material. So the only challenge that we have is that the the plastic industry is telling on everyone. We see plastic as convenient and cheap. That is why it is telling in every other sector.
Yeah.
So there was a discussion we were having the other day. We said these days we don't see clothing made of wool and cotton any longer. So somebody said cotton is expensive, but plastics are cheap. So looking at it now, I think it's true, because the plastic industry, because of how big and their diversity, they have made plastic so cheap for every other sector to pick it as a raw material for whatever thing they are producing. So it's not like there are no sustainable materials. They are. So it also boils down to an advocacy. We need to start advocating for the use of those sustainable materials in manufacturing of textile and the fashion industry.
Okay, thank you, Melody. And I think the next question I wanted to ask, you have already spotlighted the areas which you mentioned, advocacy. I wanted to ask, what form of awareness and education can we give to the consumers? So, you made mention in the course of explaining some of the ways the fashion industry can adopt some sustainable materials in the course of in producing this material, the clothing we're talking about. And also, you added the advocacy aspect, creating awareness, and that was part of the question I wanted to ask. But you've already, or there is any need to highlight that area when it comes to awareness creation, enabling the consumers, the end users, the manufacturers on the need of reducing waste generally. Is there any room for us to create that awareness?
Yes, there is need for that, in the sense that, um the this industry we are talking about is not like it's a new industry. It has been there, but the waste they are generating is already competing with plastics and the other general waste. So we really need to work to raise awareness in that industry. And then what is the solution? Part of the solution that um, zero waste is bringing to the table is upcycling, and also the use of sustainable materials. Upcycling in the sense that nothing is waste. All those pieces of clothing that they produce, especially the fashion designers, they produce while manufacturing or while making a cloth, they can repurpose it, they can reuse it, or repurpose it for another use. I've seen a situation where people convert people make a bag out of some pieces of fabrics. I've also seen a situation where even in our homes, yeah, it's very important that the advocacy to get to homes. The clothing that you are no longer using, it can you can actually give it out to people who will use it, so that in so doing it is a reuse thing. Then you can repurpose it. I've seen where people turn their clothes to pillowcases. There's a way they do it, and they're able to use it as their pillowcase, a pillowcase. There are also some that use it to produce handbags, all these mini shopping bags, all these kind of things. So it also has to do with creativity. So we just have to create things, repurpose our clothing material, so that we don't create waste. Because the truth is that the fabrics that we use, so far as we are concerned, right now, it is not biodegradable. None of them can biodegrade. So it's a big issue for us, because the more we fight Mother Earth, the day the Mother Earth will react back to us, it will be so heavy on everyone. And then there's the waste materials that end up in water. Remember that water is one of the safest cycle for living. And then what if that same water turns to be a murderer? It's going to be very, very it's going to be something else for all of us. So we just have to protect our environment, do everything we need to do as individuals to make sure our environment is protected and we are safe.
Thank you so much. Also, to add, you made mention that to reduce this waste materials, the ones that are still useful can be repurposed, giving it out and reused. And also, I will say that there is a recycled textile materials I've seen where I don't know how they did it, but it was recycled into decorative fabric and bricks that are used in homes and offices. So this is a lot you've enumerated virtually everything we have on our table today. We really want to thank you for all your insights and expertise you've shared with us. And we don't know if our audience are out there listening to all our discussions. So, is there any take-home message, any message for them?
Well, the message I would want all of us to act on, especially our listeners, is that every waste that we produce, if we do not manage it well, no matter the class of waste it is, if we do not manage it well, it's going to come back to fight us.
Thank you. I think I don't know what to say. You have done a lot, and you have done justice to today's celebration. Thank you once again, Melody, for all your contributions to humanity, and also thank you for all you do when it comes to environmental sustainability. CODAF is actually has given that great platform where a lot of waste management can be approached by individuals, manufacturers, and even the end users as well. And also the policymakers are not left behind in this aspect. Thank you for joining in today's call and also spotlighting the areas of these days, International Waste Day 2025. And to our listeners and our audience, thank you for tuning in to EcoPod with PFC's International Day of Waste celebration. We hope you have gained valuable insights and inspiration from our discussion on zero waste in fashion and textiles. Join us next time as we continue to explore innovative solutions for a more sustainable future. Thank you and have a pleasant celebration.